Want to know what Europe does for you? Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcast on multinationals, value creation and taxation.
In today's globalised economy, it's easy for multinationals to split their production processes across different countries.
But this poses significant challenges, notably in the area of tax policy. So how's the EU responding to these challenges? Stay with us and we'll explain it all to you.
The reduction in trade costs and the rapid technological advances that have characterised the global economy over the last 30 years have increasingly allowed multinationals to break up their supply chains and spread them across different countries.
So value chains have become increasingly globalised and fragmented, posing serious challenges for tax authorities worldwide.
On the one hand, governments seek to encourage trade and investment by multinationals by removing tax and regulatory barriers for them. But to attract investments, some governments have gone even further and engaged in harmful tax competition that drives corporate income taxes to the bottom, with negative effects for the public finances and long-term growth.
On the other hand, this globalized environment has allowed multinationals to shift profits between jurisdictions in order to minimize their tax obligations, and the scope for such aggressive tax planning and tax avoidance opportunities has been broadened even further by the expansion of digitalization and the increasing role of services and intangible assets in this new economy.
The problem is that tax systems worldwide have not evolved in parallel to these developments and remain deeply rooted in a bricks and mortar view of the world.
All these challenges have prompted the rethinking of tax policy at global level and forced countries to increase cooperation in order to fight tax avoidance. But before we move on to this, let's try to understand how multinationals operate. Stay with us.
Multinationals are driven by both market and cost considerations, but access to knowledge and technologies, as well as financial and tax laws, also play a part.
They create a network of affiliates and suppliers across different countries, allowing them to create value and to exchange goods, services, capital, people, and knowledge across borders, which makes it increasingly difficult to determine where value is generated and captured.
In today's economy, services have an increasingly greater role in production, and digitalisation is resulting in the development of new economic models where firms and individuals no longer need to be physically present in the country where a service is provided.
At the same time, innovative digital technologies such as big data and the Internet of Things are expanding mobility in traditional sectors such as pharmaceuticals and the automotive industry.
So the question that emerges is, where should companies and individuals engaged in this increasingly mobile and digital economy pay taxes?
Well, the focus of income sourcing in the context of international taxation has traditionally been the location where production takes place. In other words, emphasis has been placed on the supply side.
However, the digital transformation of production has challenged this approach, placing greater emphasis on the demand side and the role of the consumer in localising economic activity.
So in view of the evolving nature of modern global value chains and the changes in the generation and localization of value across production networks, the international community is converging towards a better alignment of tax systems to ensure that profits are taxed where economic activities generating those profits are performed and where value is created.
Now, this is easier said than done, as there are still many challenges, from incoherence in the understanding of an enterprise under international tax law to differing interpretation of the rules governing permanent establishment and transfer pricing.
Today, multinationals use intra-group transactions and play with the financial structure of the group to pay as little tax as possible by localizing profits in lower tax jurisdictions. And while the problem is an old one, it has been amplified by new developments.
So what has been the EU response to these practices? Stay with us.
Well, while at international level, policy developments in response to these challenges have varied among different governments, at EU level there has been a common effort to modernise the laws governing corporate taxation and to create a fairer, more effective and growth-friendly tax environment.
In 2015, the EU passed new rules to increase tax transparency and ensure that companies pay tax where they make their profits.
The EU has also pursued greater cooperation with third countries on fair taxation, including ways to deal with countries that refuse to respect the international standards for good governance.
And efforts continue to agree on a single set of rules to calculate companies' taxable profits in the EU, so that cross-border companies will only have to comply with one single EU system for computing their taxable income, rather than the many different national rulebooks.
You're listening to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.